December was expected to be an easy month for the Colorado Avalanche, but it hasn't quite turned out that way. Kyle Sullivan of Locked On Avalanche joins us to discuss what's going on in Denver. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. It is great to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Avalanche, Shaggy Von Doom himself, Kyle Sullivan. And Kyle, kind of a rough time for the Avs right now. Still in first place, not all gloom and doom, but not playing the kind of hockey you expected them to play. What's going on in Denver right now?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, my friend. It depends on which side of the fan base you ask, because again, you are correct. They're sitting number one in the Central. And this goes back to that Tom Brady debate. Like, yes, you were first as the Patriots, but you're in a weak division. The same could be said for the Colorado Avalanche. It doesn't take a lot to sit at the top of the Central right now in the state of the Western Division. But the Western Conference, it's the Avalanche. Yes, they're statistically a good team, but we all have eyeballs, and we're all watching these games. And for the Avalanche to drop games against the Winnipeg Jets and the Philadelphia Flyers, and the nature that they do, you mentioned the Colorado Avalanche, you think of players like Nathan MacKinnon, Cale, Makar, Mikko Rantanen, with the new acquisitions of Ryan Johansson, Tomas Tatar, Miles Wood, Ross Colton. Sounds like an all-star team. Nobody is playing like an all-star. There's no leadership on this team right now because the captain, Gabe Landeskog, has been out for about a year and a half. And nobody is stepping up into that leadership role, and it shows. This team could, in their sleep, score 3 goals a game. And it's just not translating right now. And it's frustrating for the fan base.
Losers of 4 out of 5 as of now, although there was a loser point in there in the mix. What is the biggest problem that this team is having on the ice? I mean, the leadership, definitely an issue, kind of harder to correct, but what's causing them to struggle on the ice right now?
Honestly, if you watch a game wire to wire, you watch the full 60 minutes, there's just no push. The Avalanche that everybody likes to know and remember is that cup run Avalanche team. They all rallied around Blink-182's All the Small Things, because that's what it took to put that team together to win the Stanley Cup. All the small things. Currently, this Avalanche team, there are no small things being put together. There's a lot of lines completely checking out. Me and Chris Vaselli, my co-host over on Locked On Avalanche, we talk about individual lines that stand out because this team is so deep. You could talk, a lot of teams get the opportunity to talk top 6. The Avalanche could talk about a top 9. Top 12 on some nights. And Ross Colton, Miles Wood, they have been just fan favorites so far. But when they take the night off, everybody takes the night off. Ryan Johansson, Valerian Nichushkin, Mikko Rantanen. When they check out, they check out. And teams, when you're the Colorado Avalanche, they're going to play their best game against the Colorado Avalanche because you want to prove yourself against a team comprised of such talent. And you can't take a night off against anybody.
Is there somebody in this locker room right now who can assume the leadership position, or do you think this team needs to make a move to bring in somebody to help be a leader in their locker room?
Well, if you ask who is the leader on this team, everybody would point to Nathan MacKinnon. But that's a role that he will tell you that's Gabe Landeskog. He is the captain of this team, and I'm not going to take a letter. This team knows what to do, which he's not wrong. Going out and getting a leader, they just got Ryan Johansson, who played for the Nashville Predators. He knows something about leadership. It is kind of awkward to come into a recent cup champion and try and usher yourself as a leader, but he has those qualities. Tomas Tatar has been in the league since 1881. He knows how to be a leader as well. He's been in some locker rooms, good and bad. This team has leaders. Nobody's stepping up to that role. You have Devon Toews, who could be a leader, a quarterback. You have Cale Makar, a generational talent, who could tell you a thing or two on how to pony up and play the game. Nobody's stepping up to that role right now. You could bring in anybody right now. They could have went out and got Patrick Kane. He would not have been the leader because this team has leaders. Nobody wants to be the leader right now.
Is it almost like they have too much respect for Landeskog that they don't want to step on his toes, so to speak?
It's one of those that we found success one way, and we're not going to mess it up. We know how to do this, but nobody is doing the things to do that they did before. It's following the same script, but not the same actors, expecting the same results. It's a little bit of insanity right now, and when things don't happen, everybody gets frustrated, but you have to put in the work. You have to put in the effort, and none of that's happening right now. And you'll see when the Avalanche win games, it's because the lines are feeding off each other. The adrenaline, the mojo, the momentum, they feed off each other. But when you start a game and Mikko and Nate come off the ice, not making shots, everything's just out of sorts, it falls all the way down. And then the Avalanche are just climbing up a mountain all game long.
Team defense hasn't been as good as it has been in the past. Is this a goaltending issue? Is this a team defense issue, or a little bit of both?
Well, Cale Makar is a generational talent. Devon Toews is also in the shadow of Cale Makar, but a generational talent. He has an astounding hockey IQ. It is very underrated in the National Hockey League. Two incredible defensemen. You have Josh Manson, Bowen Byram, Jack Johnson. Filter in whoever you want on defense. They are set on defense. Alexander Georgiev, fantastic goalie. Good enough to win you games. The forwards don't have cohesion, and neither do the defense. And when the defense doesn't trust themselves, there's a lot of overplay and underplay. And you leave Georgiev getting peppered in shots. When was the last time we talked about the Avalanche getting outshot? It happens a lot now. And it doesn't matter if you have Patrick Waugh back there. If you're letting up that many shots, just jumbled up when you have your less confident defenseman camping out in front of your goalie, screening your own goalie, it has to be cleaned up. And it's not the quality, it's just the performance that has to be cleaned up. Because the players that they put on the ice, on paper, this is a fantastic team. Execution is where they're lacking.
So what, if anything, can the coaches do to wake this team up?
They have tried swapping the lines. They have tried putting Mikko on the second line, Nathan MacKinnon on the top line. Injuries have made it to where there's been a necessity of swapping lines, and it's been one of those to fire everybody up. The response rate is not there. It's a little concerning, and it's one of those things that you are doing almost everything to get things going and nothing's happening. And it's going to be one of those where the team has to look at themselves and say, this is enough. First in the Central is not good enough. You want to win games. You don't want to lose games against the Philadelphia Flyers. You're the Colorado Avalanche. You should be a better team.
At home, no less.
At home, where it was the safe place. Like, you are like an incredible team on home ice. And if on Military Appreciation Night, and you're putting an effort like that, the team has to get embarrassed, which they already have. 8-2 against St. Louis earlier this year. You're going to have to figure it out, and somebody has to say, enough. They're almost there.
Kyle, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
The number one place you can find Locked On Avalanche, if you search us on YouTube, we're there. hey, leave us a like, leave us a subscribe, jump in the YouTube comments. We're right there. You can find us on Twitter, which is X. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us every morning on any one of those. But if you follow us on YouTube, that's where you get us first.
All right. Kyle, thanks. Always a pleasure to have you here.
It's always an honor, my friend.
A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. A player on your team could score 50 goals. Your favorite team could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you can win big playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McDavid, Ovechkin, or MacKinnon will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in any given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, hockey fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.